Hello people, good morning. I've got a little presentation over subject-verb agreement. It's a very old presentation that I had in my files, but it's a great summary of a very complex point. Uh, this is the general rule for subject and verb agreement, that a singular subject demands a singular verb and a plural subject demands a plural verb. Okay, but it gets complicated really fast. Says something here about hyperlinks. That's not going to work. Whoever made this added way too many clicks and apparently spent a lot of time on it. I would never spend so much time on a presentation. But it's pretty good anyways. Indefinite pronouns, like everyone, everybody, nobody, 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 no one, somewhere, sometime, everywhere. Those are the indefinite pronouns. Also, each and every count. They're always singular. We've got some examples, got some sound effects, and so subject is everyone, verb is singular. Subject is someone, verb is has or has to. Okay, and in fourth semester there's a special point, and this obviously applies to sixth semester as well, that you want to pay special attention when there's a prepositional phrase that comes between the subject and its verb. And there are actually a lot of different kinds of phrases, such as positives, that might separate a subject and a verb. So you want to be aware of that and don't get confused by the object of the preposition. Looks like our sound effects are a little bit behind. Each of the project partners. Okay, so here's our prepositional phrase of the project partners. Okay, our subject is each and our verb is. And native speakers will sometimes make this mistake. Even people who are very well educated and intellectuals and reporters sometimes go back to their instincts and because they're not conscious of this grammar rule, and they conjugate the verb based on the count of the last noun that they mentioned. But it's a big mistake. So he's indicating that that's the word that you're going to ignore. Each and is, subject and a verb. Alright, so we've got a situation with all and some, and what you're going to have is prepositional phrases that are created. Some of the students, okay. And so when you see this type of language, you want to pay attention to the object of the preposition and ask yourself whether it's singular or plural. And when it's plural and countable, then you're going to conjugate the verb for a plural subject. So you actually find the subject here in the prepositional phrase. The some in this case is the way I understand it, it's a vague referent. I'm going to say that is aligned with the object of the preposition, and in this case it's countable, and because of that we have a plural conjugation of the verb. Consider that as opposed to some of the grain, where grain is uncountable, which means that that's singular. And so we're going to say here that some of the grain was. Some of the people were, because people is countable and plural, and some of the grain was, because grain is always uncountable third person. So let's see what this is. All right. And he's basically explaining what I just explained. And none is one that will go either way. Usually, yeah, I'm going to go with whatever the object is. Is it countable and is it plural? No, I take that back. Usually, I go with this first structure. This is the simple way to see it. He's saying that both are acceptable, and I agree. Because there are grammar points that are debatable. Not everybody agrees on these things. You might be conscious of that maybe you will run into a scholar who believes he knows the rule, and so just be prepared that not everybody agrees, and that can be your defense. In my case, when it says none, for me that's saying that there are not any, and so if there are not any of that thing, then how can you count them? If there are not any of the representatives, then how can you count them? And that's why I would go with the singular conjugation on that. Both are correct, and most likely because of that, you would never see that point on a TOEFL exam. Okay, so we've got something similar here. 2/5 of the grain. You're going to go with the conjugation based on whether the object of the preposition is countable or uncountable. And that rule is going to work for you most of the time when you've got prepositional phrases. 2/5 of the grain, okay. So, well, grain is uncountable, it's singular. 1/2 of the students, well, the students are countable, conjugated for plural. All of the returns, okay, they're talking about voting. That's countable. Of all the returns, 50% are in favor. Okay, so this is a singular uncountable idea, the student body, even though it refers to more than one student. Alright, this is an important point, and it does come up on TOEFL exams. I would say almost one time every exam you're going to see probably in the error correction section that they've got an option with together with, along with, or as well as. And well, sometimes they substitute for, as well as for and. What's the example? Trying to recall exactly what the example is. I don't have it right there. But the important point, it's actually a different point. The important thing with these expressions is even when they are combined with the subject, they do not affect the count of the subject. They are not conjunctions. It's not the same as saying and. You cannot compose a compound subject with one of these expressions. And here's our example. Some of the hay, as well as some major pieces of farm equipment. Okay, and these are countable things, right? And you can imagine multiple items, but it does not affect the subject right here. Doesn't affect it. Think of it as in a positive. Think of it as extra information. Some of the hay was ruined. The major spending bill before Congress, together with some other bills that are awaiting action, is going to cost taxpayers plenty. So the bill is the subject, together with, does not affect the count of the subject. Sorry about the sound effects not working. I'm not sure why they're so slow. Should have turned them off. The bill is the subject. This doesn't affect it. And here's our conjugated verb, conjugated for singular. Okay, so I classify these as being in the same list as the indefinite pronouns. They're always singular. There's a different way that they occur. When they occur with two subjects, we're going to have a different rule. But in this type of expression, neither of these, well, okay, they're both negative. Appears. Singular. Neither appears. Not this one and not that one. They're referring to individual items. And the same thing occurs with either either. Either is fine. Okay. Either is fine. Okay, so yeah, we're going to see those examples. That's like neither the teacher nor the students. And a different rule is going to apply for that. Here we're going to see some of those examples. Okay, so how do you conjugate then when the sentence mentions two different subjects, and one is singular and the other one is plural? It's actually pretty easy. You conjugate the verb based on the subject that is closest to the verb. So because teachers is plural, we're going to say are. You can infer that if you change the order, you're going to change the conjugation. So the same sentence, neither the teachers nor the principal is at fault. Believe it or not. And here's a similar example. The author didn't take the same example, but he gave you a similar example. And you can see that now the verb is conjugated for singular because principal, the subject closest to the verb, is singular. Okay, here's another way it might occur in a question. Has either the president or his aides been in touch with you? Okay, so here's the conjugation here. Has either the president. There would be a lot of potential for mistakes there. So have the president's aides or the president been in touch with you, depending on the order of your subjects and depending on which one is closest to the verb that you need to conjugate. Okay, so there is and there are. This grammar is a little bit different because the subject is not there. The subject is the thing that comes after the to be verb. Several, really the origin of this is several explanations are there for the Civil War. Several explanations are there for the Civil War. but we don't say it that way, and we don't even understand it that way. But that's the origin of this expression. So explanations is countable plural, and that's why we say are. But when you have an uncountable thing, alright, actually this is not uncountable. Here come, this is an expression that follows the same rule. Here is, there is, here are, there are. Here come, you can even say there come. Here come Joe and his two brothers. Here they come. There's your subject. It's plural. We conjugate come in plural. Okay, now this time we've got a third person uncountable idea. Latitude is the subject for this verb. We've got another verb, subject verb here. Team is singular and takes, and here latitude is there. So that's that. Okay, when you got a lot of junk between the subject and the verb, you got to be careful. Usually these are appositives. Tim Berners-Lee, one of America's most prominent computer scientists and as a founder of the World Wide Web Consortium, one of the most important figures in the development of the Internet, has been working quietly at MIT for many years. Tim has been working quietly. So we're going to ignore all of that junk, and it's just a really complex appositive. All right, it gets a little bit confusing with these of phrases, and one thing I don't like about this presentation is they don't spend a lot of time on the simple of phrases, but I'm going to be going over that. I think he goes directly to a really complicated example. So this is a really advanced example, and it's called a relative clause. And in this case, you might try turning the sentence around so that it's something like this. Of those states that have adopted a state income tax, Connecticut is one, or Connecticut is one of them. So in this case, the states really are the ones who are doing this verb action, and it's actually an adjective clause, and this is the subject of the clause. All of that have adopted a state income tax is an adjective clause, and it describes the noun, the object, states. Okay, so we're really conjugating within an adjective clause, and in this case the referent refers to states, which is plural. So if you can identify a clause as an adjective clause, you might be in a different situation, and you might have to go with the count of the thing that is the object of the preposition. We're going to see other examples where the subject is actually one, but that does, and those are the most common examples. That doesn't apply to this sentence. This is a very advanced example. He doesn't tell us which one it is yet. His circle isn't clear, but yeah. His point is that Connecticut seems singular, and one seems singular, but states is plural. And in this case, this is an adjective clause that describes the states, and this clause marker is the subject of the adjective clause, and it refers to and is tied to the object that it describes, and in this case the object that it describes is plural. So the answer is have. He's not giving you the answer because he wants to show you that it's really confusing, and so that's why he puts the question mark there. And he's going to suggest that you rewrite the sentence the way that I mentioned to you. If you find that you can rewrite a sentence that way, it's going to clear things up for you. He just rearranged the sentence. Here we can see the adjective clause again. Of those states, which states? Which states? The ones that have adopted state income tax. Oh, Connecticut is one. Connecticut is one of those states. Okay, actually we don't have that review, but I wanted to show you, let me see if I can find it. Okay, I gave you guys this document, and I hope I can move that. Okay, good. Very good. Okay, so there are some great rules in this document. It's actually more comprehensive, which means it's more complete. Why doesn't that thing go away? Yeah, this is a great document, and I've included a couple of notes. Here are the special expressions like together with and along with that do not affect the count of the subject. Here's a type of inverted word order where you have the prepositional phrase at the beginning of the sentence. Under the floor sleeps the puppy sleeps under the porch. Under the porch. Here's the rule with here and there that we just saw. Okay, they're talking about question word order here. Alright, here they're talking about a compound subject. When you have and combining two subjects, you're going to create a plural subject. Okay. Okay, they've got some exceptions here, and the most common exceptions are dishes, or in other words, meals, right? Macaroni and cheese is my favorite dinner. They're considered one dish, right? Peanut butter and jelly was my son's favorite sandwich. Spaghetti and meatballs is a specialty of the house. Strawberries and cream was added to the menu. One menu item. Here's the point about each and every. Indicate that you're working with a singular subject. Many a is an expression. Many a man has. The A is the clue, because that's used for singular countable things. Okay, so they've got an example with I want to say that it's a gerund. It's an irregular gerund subject. that answers the question. Jim's ambition was in basketball to dribble well and to shoot accurately require. Okay, here we've got a compound subject. Some different rules that, okay, what is this? Okay, these are, this is a type of inverted word order that usually refers to place. But some of these, for some of these, the place isn't that clear, and you're going to find the subject after the verb. It's a type of inverted word order, and I'm not sure how to. I would have to analyze this to see what the distinction is here. This for me, this is like the previous example. Here you've got some reduced adverb clauses, and we have seen this in class. You find the subject after the comma. Here's a list of indefinite pronouns. They're always singular. Yeah, and as I say that, we've got the exception with these. Both, few, many, and several are used for countable plural subjects. Both were at fault. Many of my classmates are going. Okay, here's the point about fractions. Here are some irregular words, irregular subjects that are always singular, even though they refer to more than one thing. So the committee was, the orchestra was, the audience was. And then they mention the exception of a collective noun. Hopefully we won't see any of those. It's more common in British English, where they argue sometimes when the individuals of the collective noun appear to be doing individual activities, then you can conjugate that verb in plural. And it's really confusing, especially for Native American speakers. And it has not been taken up very much. Very few people use it in the United States. Most of the time when we see the family, it's always singular. So in British English they might say, the family were choosing their individual orders at the restaurant, and then they would argue that oh, it's because they're acting as individuals. That's really confusing. I wouldn't worry about it. Here's a point about the number and a number. The number of men in the group is, and a number of men went to the park. So there's a difference there. Here's our point with either or, neither nor, and how you, right here, look at the subject that's closest to the verb. Okay, here are some other irregular subjects, and many of these are different in Spanish, where you say the news, las noticias, the news was interesting. I'm watching the news and it is interesting today. Electronics is an interesting subject at school. Economics and politics. Economics is interesting. Politics is confusing. Okay, I'm not going to cover all of them, but there's a great one here with units of measurement. 2 teaspoons of sugar was all. You have to be careful with these because in Spanish you're probably not going to do it. 4 pounds of rice seems to be. 10 gallons of gas is enough to get to Jalapa. $5 is not a lot of money, but it's too much. It is too much to pay for a hot dog. 10 gallons of water is enough for the hike. That stuff's going to be uncountable. 1,000 pounds is very heavy to lift. It's only when you break them up into units. It's possible to refer to individual dollar bills, or it's possible to refer to gallon jugs of milk. Now you can count them when you refer to the unit or the container. Okay, so that's about it. I'll go ahead and I'm going to show you a couple of slides really quickly. If you're curious about the of expressions, each of these hot dogs is juicy. Okay, either is correct. Here we got the news is on at 6. $5 is not a lot of money. And now here's a way to use dollars, referring to bills or the monetary unit. That's a different usage. That's why they're saying are. Got some words that are always plural. And here we got the accompanied by, including yours, together with those expressions. Wait. These are our positives. Those are our positives. There was one other page. I'm not sure if this is it. Nah, that's not the one I want. Yeah, this grammar girl has a really good explanation of the relative clause. And if you're curious about it, then you can check the video if you're curious about this. You can read this on your own time. If you're curious about where I referred to the adjective clause, this is one of the novels that have made a mark in my life. My instinct tells me when I have this expression, this is one, then I always conjugate it for singular, because usually that's the construction you find. But if your verb is within the adjective clause, then you need to refer to the object that's referred to by the clause marker in the adjective clause, and in this case it's novels. That's plural. So I'll just, if you want to look at this later, she's got a really good explanation so that you can be clear on that. Okay, I think I spent too long with that. I'm gonna shut it off. Almost 34 minutes, and you guys can get back to class for more instructions.